All right, everyone knows, and it's very well documented, I'm a huge, huge Tennessee fan. And today it's time to do a preview and a game-by-game prediction for the 2024 Tennessee Vols college football team. Shout out to Sam H, D, T, and Chris T over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. All three of those scholarly individuals suggested that I do this Tennessee preview and game-by-game prediction video. So here you go. I hope y'all enjoy it. I really appreciate the support over on the Patreon page. Thank y'all so much for being members over there. If you are on the Patreon page, make sure you head over there. It's the first post on the page. It's a post about these prediction videos. Leave a comment. Let me know what team you want to see me do the preview and prediction, because every day when I sit down to do these videos, that's where I go. I go over to the Patreon page. I'll scroll through the comments and I pick out a team. And today, Tennessee is the lucky winner. The link is in the description of the video. You can go check out the Patreon page for yourself. I've done 7 or 8 of these now. There's a playlist, 2024 predictions. You can click back the last 7 or 8 videos or whatever. Oklahoma, Texas A&M, Nebraska, Colorado, Michigan, I believe we've done anyway. We've done 7 or 8 of them. Feel free to go check those out. But today is time for Tennessee. All right, Josh Heupel entering year 4 as the head coach up in Knoxville for Tennessee. First 3 years, 7-6 his first year, 11-2 in the second year, the best of the 3 years there, which ended, of course, with a New Year's Six bowl win over Clemson, if I remember right. And then a small step back this past year, going 9-4, 8-4 in the regular season, and then a bowl win to get to 9-4. They were 4-4 in the SEC, which puts them about 6th. We had divisions. They were, I believe, 3rd in the East behind Georgia and Tennessee. But if you just look at all of the conference records within the SEC, they were tied with Texas A&M at 4-4. Good for 6th best team in the SEC last year. There are 4 losses. Unfortunately, if you're a Tennessee fan, 3 of these 4 losses came to just very familiar opponents. And it's the 3 teams that Tennessee really has struggled the most with over the last coming up on 20 years now. Florida, Bama, and UGA. The 4th loss came on the road against Missouri, which, as we know, had one of the best years they've had in a really long time this past season. The only real embarrassing loss to me, the only game kind of looking back, hindsight, rearview mirror, 2020, all that kind of thing, the only of the 4 losses that you really look at and scratch your head and go, how in the hell did that happen, is, of course, the Florida loss. And we're going to talk more about the Tennessee-Florida rivalry and how it's looked over the last few years in a little bit. But Florida was not a good team last year. That's an understatement. And not only did they lose, it wasn't particularly close. They lost on the road in Gainesville 29-16. And you'll see none of these 4 losses actually were close. You know, a lot of times when you're in the offseason heading into a season and you're talking about how a team did last year, you will hear fans of that team mention, well, yeah, we lost X number of games, but they were all by 1 possession, or they were all by single digits, or, yeah, we were 8-4, but we were 7 points away from being 10-2. You hear those kinds of talking points every offseason about certain teams. That's not the case for Tennessee. All 4 of these losses were decisive losses. None were close. On the road, 29-16 to Florida, a 13-point loss. On the road, loss to Bama, 34-20, a 14-point loss. On the road at Missouri, 36-7. That might be the most embarrassing loss, actually, even more embarrassing than Florida. Now, Missouri was a really good team, so it's not necessarily embarrassing that Tennessee lost to Missouri, but wow, 36-7. And I mean, a blowout by any measure. 36-7 on the road at Missouri. And then Georgia, Tennessee's only home loss last season, a loss to Georgia, 38-10. Again, another blowout, a 4-touchdown loss, 28 points. So Florida, Bama, Mizzou, Georgia, finishing at 8-4 in the regular season, 9-4 after the bowl season. Josh Heupel's looking to get more like the 2022 season and less like the 2023 season heading into 2024. We're going to figure out if they're going to be able to do that. Let's take a look at the recruiting. Now, no single metric, no single stat, no single player or coach, for that matter, tells you everything you need to know about a team. No one stat defines a team. Okay. I look at a lot of different things. Recruiting is just one of them. Obviously, you have recruiting, you have players acquired through the portal, you've got returning talent, returning production. There's a lot of different things. Schedule, where's the home games, where's the away games? There's a lot of different things you look at, or at least I look at, that helps me determine how I think a team is going to do in a given year. But for some reason, in all of these videos, a lot of the comments seem to harp on the recruiting. Well, yeah, they recruited blah, 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 but what about blah, blah, blah? I'm just giving you the information. Again, I'm not judging a team solely based on their recruiting, whether it's really good or really bad, because you can find examples if that's all you look. Texas A&M recruited really well. How'd that work out? Not very good. TCU doesn't recruit very well at all. They played for a national title a couple of years ago. Washington doesn't recruit in the top 10. They played for a national title last year. So I understand that recruiting isn't the end all be all. However, it's an important piece of the puzzle. It's just one aspect of what I look at when it comes to judging a team. So let's take a look at Tennessee's recruiting. Well, they finished 14th in the country this past recruiting cycle, which is pretty good. I think if you're recruiting in the top 15 or 20, multiple classes, you've got a shot at having not just one good season, but stacking multiple good seasons in a row. I do believe you have to have talent to win, and recruiting, in my mind, is still the number one way of acquiring that talent. The portal is what it is, but I believe in recruiting and building your team through recruiting and using the portal sort of like the NFL uses free agency to kind of fill holes, fill gaps, add a piece or two here or there. I don't really believe in building a team through the portal. So to have the 14th ranked recruiting class, I think that's pretty good. The problem I have with Tennessee having the 14th ranked recruiting, well, let's go through the list first. So they were 14th in recruiting this past cycle. The year before that, they were 10th. The year before that, they were 17th. So, you're looking at 3 years worth of recruiting classes there, 10th, 17th, and 14th. So they're averaging about a top 15 class every year. Again, I think that's good enough to field a competitive team year in and year out against almost anybody you play. So I'm not knocking that aspect of the recruiting. Florida, however, finished 13th in recruiting this past cycle. This becomes hard to understand. Florida's been one of the worst programs in the SEC over the last 3 years. Not just bad, not just not living up to expectations, not just bad by Florida standards. Florida's been one of the worst teams in the SEC for 3 years in a row. Their head coach has never had a winning record. And they're out recruiting Tennessee. Now, I understand that there's more talent in the state of Florida than there is Tennessee, but every team in the country is recruiting the state of Florida. It's not like Florida just has its pick of the litter when it comes to in-state recruits. Every team in the country is down scouting players in Florida. It's a little hard to understand how Josh Heupel, heading into year 4, coming off 2 pretty good years in a row, can be out-recruited by Florida and a coach heading into his 3rd year who's never had a winning record. That's a little hard to understand. You look at the portal, it's a similar story. Tennessee was 32nd in the portal. Now, again, some teams need to use the portal more than others. Some teams look at the portal and they go grab a bunch of, it's a quantity thing. We need 20 players. Just go get 20 players. Other people look at the portal and they go, well, we only need 2 or 3, but make sure they're really good 2 or 3 players, whatever. Tennessee had the 32nd ranked portal class. Again, just laying the numbers out there. You can make it at what you will. They signed 9 players through the portal. Florida had the 5th ranked portal class. So Florida's out recruiting Tennessee when it comes to high school talent. And they are bringing in better portal classes, at least in terms of ranking, than Tennessee. If I was a Tennessee fan, that would bother me. That would concern me. And I haven't even mentioned the fact yet that even though Florida is bad and has been bad the majority of years for the last 15 years, they still beat you almost every single year. I would want better out of my recruiting and talent acquisition if I was a Tennessee fan, because honestly, that's what's standing in Tennessee's way. It's not the schedule. It's not that they have to play Bama every year or Georgia every year. The only thing I think, standing in Tennessee's way. They've got the coach that they believe can get them where they want to go. They've got the facilities and the money and the support of the athletic department. They've got a collective that functions normally. It's talent. It's talent. If you're a Tennessee fan and you disagree with me, and it's not a talent issue, then I guess you're saying it's a coaching issue. But it's got to be one of the two. I think they need to increase the talent level. And there's really only two ways to do that: high school recruiting and transfer portal. And as long as you're getting beat in both of those areas by Florida, never mind Georgia and Bama, the teams that Tennessee is chasing, you have to do this thing in steps. That seems to be the next logical step to me that Tennessee needs to make. I know they want to make the playoffs and win the SEC and win a national title, and maybe they will. They may make the playoffs this year. We'll talk about that in a second. Until they can get to a point where Florida is not good. Let's move on, because we'll probably get back to a little bit of that. Returning production. Again, not great. They're 94th in the country in terms of returning production. Now, that's kind of the bad news. Here's sort of the glass half full approach. A team's quarterback generally is responsible for a large portion of its offensive production, right? Pass yards, running yards, touchdowns thrown, touchdowns ran. There's a lot of ways that a quarterback can accumulate offensive production. Whether he's good or bad is irrelevant. He has a lot of opportunities and a lot of different ways that he can accumulate production. So when you lose your starting quarterback from the year before, no matter the reason, a team's production takes a big hit because you're replacing that. Now, they're obviously replacing a substandard, at least by Josh Heupel terms, QB in Joe Milton with what they believe and what could end up being a really, really good quarterback in Nico. I'm about to leave you. Former 5-star heading into his second year in Tennessee. Again, I'm not here to tell you that Tennessee being 94th in returning production means they're not going to be any good. I'm not here to tell you that because Nico could be better than Joe Milton, that means they are going to be good. I'm not here to tell you that because they recruited 14th, they're going to be good. I'm not here to tell you that because they got out-recruited by Florida, they're going to be bad. I look at, I put all of this information into a pot, stir it up, and you do the best you can to try to come up with an idea of what you think a team will look like in a given year, and that's what we're doing here. I'm just giving you the information. They returned 46% of their production on offense. Again, a lot of what they're missing there is the quarterback position. They returned 58% of the production on defense, and primarily what they return is the front seven. In fact, we're going to talk about their secondary in a minute, but it's basically brand new. Let's start with the offense, though. Of course, Nico in, Joe Milton out. Hendon Hooker had a great year 2 years ago in that Josh Heupel offense. One of the best seasons Tennessee's had in about 20 years. Took a step back last year when Joe Milton became the starting quarterback. He's now gone, and in comes Nico. He played in, I think, 4 games last year, and then he started the bowl game. Tennessee won the bowl game. He had a couple of rushing touchdowns, I think. I don't particularly think he looked great in the pocket as a passer, but again, that was with 2 weeks to practice for a bowl game against a really good Iowa defense. He's now going to have 6, 7, 8 months to prepare himself as the starter, getting all the first team reps, learning the offense, becoming more experienced, all that, heading into the start of the season where he will be the full-time starter. He is a first-year starter. Along with that comes a certain amount of uncertainty, question marks. I don't doubt Nico's ability, potential, talent, or ceiling. I don't doubt any of that. My question about Nico is how close to that ceiling can he get in his first year as a starter? The closer he gets to that ceiling, the more likely I think it becomes that Tennessee potentially makes a playoff in 2024. If we see a lot of the first-year starter mistakes that we tend to see from a lot of first-year starters, indecisiveness in the pocket, bad decisions, trying to do too much, that kind of thing, then maybe Tennessee comes up a game or two short of making the playoff, in which case it would be a huge building block towards a potential playoff run next year. We'll see. There's reason to be optimistic about Nico. There's also reason for not skepticism. I don't know of anybody that necessarily thinks Nico is going to be bad. It's, when you haven't seen a guy play, how close does he get to how good we think he can be? And those questions will be answered this season when it comes to Nico. Now, he's going to have a ton of options at the wide receiver position. If there's a position group on Tennessee that's more loaded than their wide receiver room, I don't know what it is, but they get Brew McCoy back. He's a former transfer, had a devastating injury about halfway through the season. It kept him out, so he decided to come back for another year. All indications that I can come across online are that he should be ready to go by the start of the season. I certainly hope that he is. He was a fun player to watch both last year and previous to his getting to Tennessee, and that was a really bad injury. So, like Tennessee fans, I certainly hope he has made and will continue to make a full recovery and is able to go at 100% and be ready by the time the season starts. Squirrel White is back. I don't think this is just my opinion, he didn't really live up to the hype for me last year. There was a lot of talk about Squirrel White last offseason, heading into the season as kind of a Hyatt replacement or something like that from the year before. Again, it's not that Squirrel White was bad. I thought he was a pretty good player. I don't think he played at the level that maybe some people were saying he would play at this time last year. Doesn't mean he can't get there again. Just another year of experience, right? Potentially a better quarterback throwing him the ball this year in Nico versus Joe Milton last year. So, it's definitely good to have him back. You've got a lot of experience right here at the wide receiver position with Brew McCoy and Squirrel White. And then you add a ton of new faces. You add some wide receivers through the portal. You add a tight end through the portal. You've got a 5-star freshman in Mike Matthews. And let's be real, according to, I think it was Jalen Hyatt, Tennessee only has 7 plays on offense, which is why they're able to run at such a fast pace when they choose to do it. It shouldn't take all that long for a true freshman, Mike Matthews, to learn those 7 plays. If he's as good as advertised, I expect we'll see him play a lot in 2024. Offensive line, they get 3 starters back. Left tackle, probably one of the best in the league, a former transfer, I think, from LSU. One of the best left tackles in the league. Got to find 2 replacements on the offensive line. Running back, I really like Dylan Sampson. He had over 600 yards last year, and I think 7 or 8 touchdowns, something like that. Not a lot of proven depth behind him, though, this year heading into 2024. And like most every team, not just in the SEC, but throughout the country now, Tennessee rotates 2, 3 running backs into the game. So, again, when Dylan Sampson is in the game, I'm comfortable with that. If I'm a Tennessee fan, I know what I can get, and I know what I can expect from him, which is a above-average running back. Is he great? Is he going to go for 1,000 yards? Is he winning a Heisman or the Doak Walker Award? Probably not, but he's a really good running back. Behind that, again, just to me, question marks about who's there. Doesn't mean they're bad. Just means I don't know for a fact that they're good. Got to see it. That's it. That's all I'm saying. Not saying they're bad. Defensively, the front 7, it's going to be among the best in the SEC. It's going to be up there with the Georgias, the Bamas, the Texas, the whatever team you want to name that you think is going to have really good defense in 2024. Tennessee is going to be up there. James Pierce, one of, if not the best defensive players in the country, had a ton of sacks last year, had a bunch of tackles for loss. In fact, I think Tennessee led maybe the country, or maybe it was just the SEC in tackles for loss. They had a great front 7 last year. They get a lot of that back. Defensive tackles, defensive ends, the inside and outside linebackers. Tennessee is going to be really good along the front 7. The back end reminds me a lot of LSU last year. And that doesn't mean it's going to be bad like LSU was last year defensively in the secondary. But if you remember this time last year when we looked at LSU, all new defensive backs brought in through the portal. Tennessee's in a similar situation this year. It did not work out for LSU last year. The defense was not just bad, it was horrific. Now, Tennessee's got a better front 7, I think, than what LSU was working with last year, although Harold Perkins, one of the best players in the country there. But overall, Tennessee's probably a little bit better in the front 7 now than LSU was last year. But Tennessee lost 10 defensive backs, 10, to either the transfer portal, graduation, or the NFL draft. 10. Everybody back there is new, either through the portal or recruiting, and they've never played before or whatever the case. But you're going to have a entirely rebuilt secondary on the back end for Tennessee this year. And again, that's not a guarantee that Tennessee's defense or secondary is going to be bad because of that. It's not. But it's also no guarantee that that secondary is going to be good. We've never seen it. So it's a huge question mark, and probably the biggest question mark on Tennessee's team outside of maybe the Nico question. And again, with Nico, it's not, is he going to be good? Is he going to be one of the best 10 quarterbacks in the country? Good. Or is he just going to be good as a first-year starter? Good. How good is he going to be is the question about Nico. With the secondary, look, it could end up everything comes together. They got a couple of great players back there, maybe a lockdown corner, a hard-hitting safety, whatever, and they end up having a great secondary. That's possible. It's also possible that it just never works. The pieces don't fit. It doesn't come together, and their secondary ends up getting exposed at the worst possible moments against teams who have the ability to throw the ball. We just don't know. But that's what I see when I look at Tennessee's team for 2024. Now I'm going to put the schedule up on the screen right here, and I'm going to go through it game by game and give you a winner and a loser for every single week. All right, a couple of things that jump out to me here. A big talking point this offseason. Can Tennessee make the playoffs? Can they? Yes. I think they can. Will they? That's obviously a much tougher question to ask. I see what appears to be most likely 5 ranked games on this schedule right here. Now, it's obviously possible that by the time each of these games is played, you look back at the end of the season and maybe that number has jumped to 6, maybe it has dropped to 4. But right now I'm seeing NC State, Oklahoma, Alabama, Kentucky, and Georgia as teams that are going to be ranked in almost everybody's preseason top 25 and will most likely be ranked in the top 25 when the games are played. How many of those 5 games can Tennessee win? Can they win 3 of them? NC State, Oklahoma, Bama, Kentucky, and Georgia. Can they win 3 of those and not lose any other games? Because that would put them at 10-2, and a 10-2 Tennessee with 3 wins against those 5 ranked teams and this schedule is getting in the playoffs. A 9-3 Tennessee team with this schedule, it becomes a lot less likely that they get into the playoffs. Then you're going to start looking at, well, what are the second and third best teams' record in the ACC? What's the third and fourth best teams' record in the Big Ten? What's the runner-up record in the Big 12, right? And it can be, so it's a crapshoot at that point. 10-2, Tennessee's in. Can they win 3 of those 5 ranked games? That's one thing that I'm looking at. The other thing I'm looking at here, on the road at Oklahoma, home against Florida, and home against Kentucky. I've already done an Oklahoma version of this video where I talked a lot about the Tennessee-Oklahoma game and how big of a game I think it is for both teams. It's a big game for Oklahoma because it's their first SEC game, and it's at home. It's going to be a crazy environment. To me, it's a huge game for Tennessee because I view Tennessee right now as a better team than Oklahoma. If you were to make like an SEC pecking order, I would have Tennessee above Oklahoma in that pecking order. If they can't go on the road and win that game at Oklahoma, then it becomes increasingly less likely that they're able to win enough of their remaining games to get into the playoffs. In other words, if they can't beat Oklahoma on the road, are they beating Georgia on the road? Are they beating Alabama at home? Are they beating Kentucky or Florida, right? Anyway, let's go through the schedule. 4 automatic wins I see without even having to think about it at all. Chattanooga, Kent State, UTEP, and Vandy. 3 of those are at home, 1 on the road, that being Vandy. Shout out Vandy. Y'all are horrific. Tennessee will whip you on the road in Nashville. So 4 wins without even having to think about it. Let's talk about week 2, NC State. Neutral site game in Charlotte. This is the game that Georgia and Clemson played in a couple of years ago. Tennessee and NC State playing in that game this year, week 2. Sort of Duke's Mayo Classic or whatever it is they call that thing. I think when Georgia and Clemson played, it was in week 1. This year, it's week 2. Tennessee and NC State. NC State will be a ranked team. Some people think they have potential of winning the ACC. We'll see. Can they compete with Tennessee? No. Tennessee should win this game easily. If they were to lose this game, you can forget about everything else I'm about to say in this video because NC State should not be on Tennessee's level right now. This is not Butch Jones, Tennessee, or Derek Dooley, Tennessee. This should be a no-brainer. And I'm going with Tennessee to get the win against a pretty good NC State team, but again, a team I don't think is on Tennessee's level. Kent State, already told you, win on the road at Oklahoma. Did that video. I think Tennessee gets the win. I think they're a better team. I think they're further along. They've got a coach that's been there and a little bit more well-established than Brent Venables. Believe it or not, I think Tennessee's got a much better defense than Oklahoma. Oklahoma's got severe red flags when it comes to their offensive line. And you do not want to be in that position in playing this front seven. You don't. And 4 weeks, I don't think, is enough time for Oklahoma to get that offensive line straightened out to the point to where they're going to be able to hold off that Tennessee front seven. Jackson Arnold's a first-year starter at quarterback for Oklahoma. I get it that Nico is too. If I'm a first-year starting quarterback, I'd rather go against Oklahoma defensively than I would Tennessee, particularly when it comes to the front seven. I just think Tennessee goes on the road and gets that win. It feels like a must-win game for Tennessee, again, because when you look at what's left on their schedule, at least in my mind, if they're not good enough to beat an Oklahoma, how do they get enough wins out of what's left to make the playoffs? I don't think they do. I think if Tennessee loses, though, I don't care if they could beat NC State by 100. If they lose on the road at Oklahoma, I don't believe Tennessee makes the playoffs. If they win on the road at Oklahoma, I believe they've got about an 80% chance at that point of making the playoffs, and I think they get to win on the road at Oklahoma. First bye week for Tennessee. They go into that bye week at 4-0, come out of that on the road at Arkansas. Outside of Josh Pate, I don't know anybody that thinks Arkansas is going to be any good. And Josh Pate only thinks that because he thinks every team is good, every player is good, every coach is good. Just everybody is good. Everybody has a potential of going 100-0 and winning the World Cup. Back here in reality, I look at Arkansas and I see another rough season on deck for them, which could potentially be Sam Pittman's last as head coach there. I think Tennessee gets another win, still undefeated. And then it comes to Florida game, and I'm going to skip around a little bit here. I'm going to talk about the Florida game and the Kentucky game at the same time. I know that, after Florida, you play Bama, and then you have a bye week, and then you play Kentucky, but I'm going to talk about Florida and Kentucky at the same time here. You get them both at home. That's an obvious advantage to Tennessee, okay? I think you're better than Florida. I think you're better than Kentucky. I also think Kentucky in particular is a pretty good team, and Florida, doesn't matter whether they're a good team or not. They give you fits year in and year out. I know you beat them in Knoxville 2 years ago, but here's the thing. When people, Tennessee fans in particular, talk about Tennessee versus Kentucky every year, no matter how good Kentucky is in a given year, what do Tennessee fans say? Doesn't matter how good Kentucky is. We beat them every year. And to a large degree, they're right. Kentucky and Tennessee play every year. Kentucky has beat Tennessee 3 times since 1985. Almost 40 years, Kentucky's beat them 3 times. They beat them most recently in, I think, 2020, and then 2017 and 2011. So even over the last 15 years, 3 wins in the last 15 years, if you want to look at it that way, for Kentucky against Tennessee. And again, Tennessee fans will remind you about that constantly, especially when that Tennessee-Kentucky game gets close every year and Kentucky is ranked or, strings a couple of wins together and people start going, oh, man, could Tennessee lose to Kentucky? The Tennessee fan will look you right in your face and go, it doesn't matter how bad we are, and it doesn't matter how good Kentucky is. Kentucky can't beat Tennessee. And again, the numbers show that that's true. Now let's talk about Tennessee and Florida, because the exact opposite is true. Tennessee cannot beat Florida. They beat them 2 years ago. They beat them 6 or 7 years ago. And they beat them 15 years. They beat them 3 times in the last 20 years or whatever it is. Plenty of those years, Tennessee was a better team. Last year, Tennessee was a much better team than Florida. They lost. And there's other examples of that along the way. Everything that Tennessee fans say about the game against Kentucky can be applied in reverse to the game against Florida. So if somebody comes on and predicts Tennessee to lose to Florida, don't come at them with the, what do you mean Tennessee is going to lose to Florida? Tennessee is way better than Florida. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. We've seen that it doesn't matter. I am struggling here with both of these games, the Florida game and the Kentucky game. They're both at home. Florida is horrific. 3 losing seasons in a row. But they beat you in 2 of those seasons. Kentucky, I think Kentucky's going to be pretty good, better than Florida. But it is true. You seem to own them. Even the years where Tennessee was busy only winning 1 or 2 SEC games a year, like clockwork, one of those 1 or 2 SEC wins was against Kentucky every year. I think Kentucky might have, on paper, the ability to compete or beat Tennessee, but God, it's hard to make that pick. I think Tennessee should beat Florida by 3 touchdowns. But my God, it's hard to make that pick. Even the win in Knoxville 2 years ago, that was Tennessee's breakout year. They went on to a New Year's Six Bowl and 11 wins and all that. That was a 1-possession game with Florida and an onside kick late in the 4th quarter. It's hard to just confidently look and go, oh, yeah, Tennessee's going to beat Florida. Oh, yeah, Kentucky's going to beat Tennessee. The good news is if you beat Oklahoma ahead of that, like I think that you will, you'll be undefeated. You could potentially lose the Florida game. That would be your first loss. Maybe you beat Florida and lose to Kentucky. What happens to the Alabama game? I think you beat Florida at home. I just feel like by this point in the season, Florida is going to be teetering on the edge of give-up mode, teetering on the edge of coaching search mode. I don't think Napier will be the coach at Florida in 2025. That's irrelevant to this game, but I don't see Florida going on the road and getting the win at Knoxville, so I'm giving Tennessee a win in the Florida game. But I'm not very confident in that at all. I'm more confident in Tennessee's ability to win on the road at Oklahoma. Nothing against Oklahoma than I am Tennessee's ability to beat Florida at home. And it's purely because you seem to can't beat them for whatever reason. But I think I'm going to give you the win. I think you get the job done at home against Florida. The following week, you play Alabama. They're going to beat you in Knoxville. Now, here's the thing. You beat Bama in Knoxville 2 years ago. I get it. But how many times you beat Bama in the last 20 years? Once. Now, you may be a better team than Bama. They've got some sort of psychological hold, it would appear to me, on you. I could be wrong. You could beat Bama. All right? Great. Then I'm wrong. I could also be wrong about you beating Florida, though. Maybe you lose to Florida and beat Bama. This is Tennessee we're talking about, okay? Tennessee is not good enough, and they're not consistently good enough and deep enough to where you just go, oh, yeah, they're going to beat Florida. Oh, yeah, they're going to beat Bama. Oh, yeah, they're going to beat Kentucky. Oh, yeah, they're going to beat Georgia. Oh, yeah, they're going to beat... No, you've got to really think about these games. Tennessee has not earned the right or the respect level required to look at games against top 10 and top 15 teams and just go, oh, yeah, Tennessee's going to win that, no problem. They've had one good year in the last 20, okay? And they didn't win shit in that year. No division title, no SEC title, no playoff berth, nothing. I think they're really good, okay? I've got them beating Oklahoma. I got them beating Florida. I think Bama beats them. You come out of the bye week, Kentucky becomes the biggest game of the year, I think, okay? Like I mentioned earlier, I fully believe that a 10-2 Tennessee team will make the playoffs. A 9-3 Tennessee team, it becomes very unlikely that they get in at 9-3. If you lose to Bama, you can only lose one more game if you want to be 10-2. And you've got games against Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Georgia 3 weeks in a row. Now, those are 3 of the most physical teams in the SEC. I'm not talking about best. I'm talking the most physical. Alabama's the game of... That might be the 4 most physical teams in the SEC. Bama, Kentucky, Mississippi State, and Georgia. And you play them 4 games in a row. You do get a bye week between Alabama and Kentucky. I think you beat Kentucky at home. I think you beat Mississippi State at home, who it's just been a mess there since Mike Leach left. It's a horrible situation what happened there. There was a lot of excitement around Mike Leach, and then he passed away unexpectedly, and they couldn't really do a coaching search because of the optics involved, so they promoted the guy that didn't work out and got rid of him, got a new guy in. Rough days ahead for Mississippi State, I think. And then on the road at UGA, and I think Georgia beats you for a couple of different reasons. I think Georgia's got a massive coaching advantage in this game. I think Georgia's got better players. It's at Georgia. And it's not that I think Josh Heupel's a bad coach, but when you look at the Georgia-Tennessee matchups over the last 3 years while Josh Heupel has been there, Tennessee struggles to get first downs. I mean, they scored 1 touchdown a couple of years ago. I think they scored 2 touchdowns 3 years ago. Struggled to score last year. They scored 1 touchdown at home last year. And I know Joe Milton, well, even with Hendon Hooker, they scored one. I think they scored 1 touchdown, 1 or 2 touchdowns with Hendon Hooker. For whatever reason, it at least so far, it looks like Kirby Smart defensively has solved the riddle of the Josh Heupel offense. That's at least how the game has played out the first 3 times that these coaches have gone head-to-head. 2021, 2022, and 2023, Kirby's 3-0 against Heupel in those 3 seasons. And again, completely stifling the Tennessee offense in all three games, 2 of which were in Knoxville. This one's at UGA. I just don't think Tennessee wins that game. I do think they beat UTEP and Vandy, as previously mentioned. So I don't know whether, I mean, I guess the Tennessee fans, I guess, are going to be some combination of mad and happy with this prediction, because I've got Tennessee at 10-2, which I think will put them in a 12-team playoff. I do not think Tennessee is good enough to either make the SEC title game or win the SEC title game. I think there's a much higher chance, if I'm wrong, that Tennessee goes 9-3 or 8-4 than there is that I'm wrong because Tennessee goes 11-1 or 12-0. I don't think a first-year starting quarterback and a brand new secondary and some questions in my mind at the running back position beyond Dylan Sampson, I see no way at all Tennessee will be good enough and, more importantly, deep enough depth-wise to beat Oklahoma, NC State, Florida, Bama, Kentucky, and Georgia all in the same year. I just don't see that happening. I think they find a way to go 10-2 and get in the playoffs. The key games to me, Oklahoma, Florida, and Kentucky. I've got you winning all 3 of those games. So I don't really want to hear shit from the Tennessee fans about this guy's biased, this guy this, they're just a Georgia fan, blah, blah, blah. How many people on planet Earth right now think Tennessee's beating Oklahoma, Florida, and Kentucky, all 3 this year? Less than half the people on planet Earth believe that, okay? I'm one of the people that happens to think you can do it. You got to win on the road at Oklahoma. If you lose that game, you can forget everything else. If you lose to Oklahoma, the chances of losing to Florida go up, the chances of losing to Kentucky go up, and you're still going to lose to Georgia and Bama. You got to win that Oklahoma game. It's more important than the NC State game, in my mind. You got to win that game at Oklahoma. And then it comes down to the Florida-Kentucky game. Can you beat both of them? And look, is it possible you beat Georgia or Bama? Of course it is. Of course. Anything. We all been watching college football a long time. Of course you could beat Bama. Of course you could beat Georgia. If that happens, though, you're likely to have lost somewhere else. Going 12-0 is going to be hard. Very hard. Georgia hasn't lost a regular season game since COVID. They've gone 12-0 3 years in a row. I haven't done a Georgia version of this video yet, but here's a hint and some breaking news. Georgia's not going 12-0 in the regular season. They're not. I don't think anybody in the SEC is going undefeated in the regular season. So for me to have Tennessee at 10-2, and look, I'm not doing this to try to kiss anybody's ass or what. I've been shitting on Tennessee fans since the day this channel was created. Why? Because they deserved it. Okay? Because they were god-awful. They were terrible. They were an embarrassment. They were hiring clown coaches who said dumb shit like 5-star hearts and brick by brick and, mental reps. And they crowned themselves champions for winning a football game at a race car track in week 1 against an undefeated Virginia Tech team. They've just continued, both the team and their fans, to do the dumbest shit imaginable. All that's true. I also think Tennessee's going 10-2 this year and making the playoffs. I call it like I see it. I know that, unless I predict your team's going undefeated, or unless I do a prediction that's exactly the same as your prediction, then, it's this guy just hates my team. And, I had a guy tell me yesterday, I bet you didn't watch any Oklahoma games last year. I mean, the guy's a fucking idiot. I watched more Oklahoma games than the average Oklahoma fan. I mean, I watch 15 games a day, okay? And I've got video evidence. I'm on fucking video 12 hours a day every Saturday during the football season with 4 fucking TVs. And well, what? Wait a minute. You don't think my team's going to have the same record that I think they're going to have? Well, you just hate my team and you've never seen a game. Yeah, okay. Have a great day.